Hello, everybody. Back again, another installment in our Win with the Closed Sicilian series, which is part of a big playlist. Here we're dealing with systems involving the move Knight Ge2, and this game is from the Russian Championship, or Soviet Championship rather, 1967. Anatoly Karpov, young international master at the time, with the white pieces versus a player named Samryuk with the black pieces. Interesting to note is that Anatoly Karpov played quite a few games in his young career as an international master in the closed Sicilian, and this was one of his favorite variations as he played it at least 4 or 5 times with this move right here, Knight Ge2. Okay, so D6 was played, castles, and Knight F6. All right, and now Black's formation is very typical and standard. Basically, just developing, castling in this typical dragon setup. And Black's idea basically here, he's not playing any games. He's not trying to, delay castling and, see what White's going to do and castle on the other side of the board, etc. Black just completes his development, castles, and what his plan is basically is to weather this storm of White's kingside attack and then counterattack on the other side of the board by advancing his pawns on the queen side. All right. H3 by Karpov. Idea very simple and similar all across the board, whether you're playing the English opening, sometimes the King's Indian attack. Most of these Fiend Kettle setups, you'll see this move H3 inserted at one point. Since the idea is to play the move Bishop E3, followed by Queen D2 at some point, and to trade off this bishop, White does not want to be harassed by a move like Knight G4. So H3 is a standard move, prophylactic move, making sure that does not happen. Bishop D7. And of course, there are tons of moves Black can do here. E5 is one of them. Knight E8 with the idea of transferring this knight to C7. Um, Rook B8, commencing this immediate counterplay with the pawn here. Of course, after this knight is adequately protected. And also the move Knight D4. So there's quite a few choices that Black has. And this is what contributes to the appeal of openings in these closed systems, is that since play is more based on strategy, right, it's possible for you to outplay your opponent without just relying on playing by rote and these long forcing tactical lines here. In this game, Black chose another normal looking move, Bishop D7. Karpov played Bishop E3, and there it is, Rook B8, Queen D2, B5, and now Knight D1. And this just gets the knight out of the way of the move that's about to come, B4. Notice that the knight on D1 protects this pawn. Okay. And of course, White is hoping to be able to play this move D4, take control of the center. Queen A5 is played. And this is interesting. Um, because B4 just seems, more to the point here. All right. Okay. So this move right here, Black is basically offering to go into a drawerish looking endgame. All right. Karpov plays C3. All right. Now it's good that he decline this offer because it's too early to go into the end game for white right now. Okay, because I mean black, have a decent end game. It would be a drawish game. Uh, White's chances lie in the middle game, right? With the attack, was attacking on the king side, you know, uh, building up a dominating center and playing in the middle game. So this is why he declines that, unless he just wanted to draw. Okay, Rook F E8, Bishop H6, and now you can see one of the reasons behind getting the rook off the F file, so there's no pin. Preserves his bishop, however, but it costs time, and now Karpov plays G4. All right. Another thing about this maneuver, because you see it a lot where players want to preserve that bishop, is that the square restricts the king's movement. That's one less square the king can go to, and so that move is what it's good and bad. Right? It takes time to do it, and the king is restricted somewhat. All right? And with this rook going from F8, this would lead you to think that white would now strategically like to open up the F file and place his rooks on the F file, since this bishop on H6 is controlling the F8 square. All right. Let's see what happened now. Knight E8, F4, B4, and Karpov plays F5. All right. So after F5, of course, in many of these variations in the Sicilian, the question revolves around the use of the E5 square by black. All right. So is that going to be more important than white's oncoming attack on the position? All right. Here's the counterattack from black on the queen side. Okay, hold on for 1 second because I have sorry, I had made a mistake earlier. Have to go back. Okay, sorry about that. After 13, bishop h6 here, g4. I know what I did. I moved the rook to the wrong square. That's what happened. Sorry about that. Yes, after c3, this rook didn't go to e8. It moved to c8. And the idea is the same, of course. Moving this rook off prevents black from having to give up this bishop. Now we're on the right track. Bishop h6, and now the same thing, and now we're on the right track. So the rook is not here, but here. So g4, and now knight e8, f4, and now everything's the same. b4 and f5. And now we were talking about this square after f5. And now the knight can occupy. So here's the counterattack on the opposite wing. And now the knight hopped in to e5. Knight f4. And now the queen just came back to d8. Alright. And the queen had to get back because the king side attack for white is starting to build up. And the fact that black had to retreat like that kind of makes you question whether he should have played queen a5 in the first place as opposed to just b4. So knight e3. Knight c7. Queen f2. And again we see this build up, this ominous build up on the f file. Queen creeps over. And now rook a d1. All right. Now the problem for black here is mainly the lack of effective counterplay. Now he's opened up the B file, right? He's used up his get out of jail free card basically on the queen side where he's pushed the pawns, opened up the file, but now what? Like how do you use the B file to really uh further threaten white's position? So that's his main problem right now is the lack of of counterplay here. So we'll see black trying to generate some meaningful play here. Rook b6, h4, rook c b8. So now we can see the idea. But now rook d2. So now he just decides, hey, I'm going to trade off. Here's the play in the center. Again, very typical. C takes. C takes. Trade is managed. Bishop takes f4. And knight c6. Knight e d5. Knight takes d5. Knight takes d5. And now knight b4. Okay. So black has been able to exchange a few pieces, but white has a clear advantage now due to his space and the domination in the center. Knight f4, knight c6, and this is basically black's only claim to fame. Basically, is it's just annoying white by attacking this pawn. h5, rook b4, so he's doing all he can to attack this d pawn. Knight e2, a5, and now rook d3. Okay, so black is putting all this pressure on d4, and white is handling that, but at the same time, he's still able to conduct his kingside attack. So black's counter blows aren't strong enough to distract white from what he's trying to do on the king side. Rook c4, king side gets busted open. And now white says, all right, forget it, man. Go ahead, take the d pawn because of the threats. All right. Now, again, when you look at this, right, remember this move where the rook was moved over to c8 in order to preserve this bishop. And notice again, so the bishop is here not really being effective, although black preserved it. And shamefully now, to stop the threats on f8, he has to trade the bishop anyway. Okay, so g5 is played. Why g5? Because now he wants to use that as an anchor, the h6 square. All right. And then after getting the queen there, of course, move the rook over and then start mating. Again, desperately trying to reduce material on board to keep from getting checkmated. And finally, the d4 pawn pauses. Falls. But if Karpov loses a pawn or gives up a pawn, that means you probably lost already. Rook d1, king g2, rook c1, and this pen is dangerous and deadly. So after rook c1, just queen b2, and this pretty much is a wrap, because now again the pen rears its ugly head. So even after the rook is captured, white simply goes a piece up, and there will be no perpetual check because now the queens are traded off the board, and black was forced to resign. So another masterpiece. Great game from the young Anatoly Karpov. And we see again typical methods of just outplaying the opponent from a very solid looking position. Again, you look here, there's nothing wrong with the black position. So don't go home thinking that, there's this big advantage here, but just uh, simply playing chess and outplaying uh, the opponent. And this is what Karpov did. Just playing on general principles and ideas, going for the bishop trade and playing in the center and on the king side, as we see. Eventually, black's king side, queen side attack ran out of gas, and we see that white continued his ideas of pushing forward in the center and on the king side. And these are the ideas that we want to take from this game today. That white's king side attack was eventually too much, even for the valiant effort that black placed in finally winning the D pawn. Then eventually he resigned at full piece down. All right, that is it for this game. We are still looking at systems with knight Ge2. In our next game, as it is a popular variation, we have a few more to go, and we'll be moving on to our next system. Again, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. Check the playlist if you're interested in this opening, Win with the Closed Sicilian, as we look at all the major variations. If you want to add this to your repertoire, and please donate if you can. That would be greatly appreciated. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next video. Thank you for listening.